My name is Dan Buglio. I'm a chronic pain and chronic illness ailment coach. After 13 long years of chronic back pain and sciatica, I got better with the help of a Dr. John Sarno. So I've got about 25 years all told of either living with it or studying it, and now probably the past 6 or 7 years coaching it and teaching it. My goal is to help more people realize that there's a different explanation for chronic pain or chronic symptoms because a lot of people don't know about it. So for me, I grew up in what I would call an ideal childhood. There must have been 20 kids within a block and a half, and it was always somebody to go out and play with. And so from that standpoint, it was awesome. I don't look back and say I had any particularly horrible trauma, but that's also to prove that you don't have to come from a horrible traumatic environment to have chronic symptoms come up later in life. For me, I was in my early 30s, was married, little kid, 3-year-old, money problems, living in a rental, didn't own a home, long commute to a job that was pretty stressful. The main question was, how did I get here? This isn't what I was expecting. What did I do with anger as I was getting into a situation that was less than ideal? I kind of swallowed it, suppressed it, repressed it. I had that major back spasm, practically dropped me to my knees, and that started 13 years of back pain and sciatica. From the time my back pain started, it took a long 13 years before I was able to end it and have it not come back anymore. During that time, I learned about Dr. Sarno, the mind-body connection. I thought I understood it, but yet the pain would go away, it would come back, go away, come back, get worse. Not go away anymore. It would stay persistent, chronic at varying levels from mild to wild. And I really had a rough time with that journey. And I just want to reassure everybody that when I was going through it, there was not nearly the amount of information available that there is today. As long as you're talking about it, your brain says, we're in trouble. This is a big problem. And it almost became an identity. When you stop doing certain things because if your back hurts, there's no choice for your brain other than to perceive. Dan's broken. The brain's perception is way more important than the status of the physical body. If the brain thinks you are damaged or broken, the brain will behave as if that's true. So if you think your body is the problem, the brain operating on that information will keep the alarm system going, even though the body's not really the cause. When you have chronic pain or other chronic ailments, it becomes all-consuming. It's all you think about, it's all you talk about, and your entire day, from the moment your eyes open up until the moment you crash at night, is consumed by, how the heck do I get rid of this? And it becomes so consuming that they can't think of or do anything else. And when we look at the actual cause of the symptoms, being the brain perceiving danger, and in the most cases of chronic ailments, the perception's incorrect. It's a false alarm. Safety, teaching the brain that we're actually okay, is the most straightforward way to reverse this. None of that anticipatory fear does anything other than tell the brain we're in trouble. So, the way I really approach it is you got to understand how this thing called the human system functions. How does it work? How does the brain work? What's the purpose of pain? Why do we have it in the first place? And once you understand how the system works, then we can start to work within that framework to teach the brain to do something different. It's always the brain's perception that determines whether or not the symptoms or pains are there. And this goes well beyond pain. It can be vertigo, dizziness, gastrointestinal problems, could be weakness, numbness, tingling, all sorts of things. But it's definitely not just about pain, because virtually all symptoms are caused by the brain. So pain's always a warning. It is not an accurate representation of the condition of the body. The brain pays attention to everything. Pain can be created based purely on a perception of danger with no actual tissue damage. So the brain's perception is paramount. And that applies to real illness, real injury, real disease. But what we have also found is that even in a case of a true injury, remaining calm and trusting, you're going to have less pain than if you freak out. So it doesn't matter if it's a legitimate injury, legitimate physical structural problem or a perceived one, the solution is always safety. Trust your body, teach your brain. That's what I always say, which is true because the body always heals. The perception of danger can be anything. It can be social situations, can be stress, family stress, money stress, could even be our own self-judgments and our own thoughts. I'm not good enough. Self-image is a huge issue with people with these symptoms. And many people even start blaming themselves. This is all my fault. Because a lot of people are like, oh, good, my body's not the problem. And then they start going, oh, so you mean my brain's doing this? What's wrong with me? I can't believe I'm doing this to myself. It's a mistake. This is not your fault. It's where you ended up, but it's not your fault. I think it makes it very clear when you tell somebody, there's nothing to heal, you're not broken, there's nothing to fix. We just want to teach the brain that that's the fact so that the brain can say, holy cow, you mean we're really okay? It's really about teaching the brain we're safe now, emotionally, physically, mentally. How we treat ourselves matters, because if you're beating yourself up all the time, the brain's going to perceive that as an attack, which is in the danger column, not safety column. We want to teach the brain that emotions are safe by feeling them. We want to teach the brain that we're physically safe, not by doing jumping jacks or anything, but if you're in a relaxed body, comfortably breathing, the brain has no choice but to say, Dan's okay. We can literally teach ourselves to not believe the negative thoughts. Because if you can't stop them and fixing it would be exhausting, we can simply say, oh, that's a negative thought, but I don't need to believe that. Symptoms behave differently if they're caused by a brain perceiving danger. They might be a little more inconsistent. They might move, they may change, they may show up on schedule. Maybe they show up first thing in the morning, but as the afternoon goes on, it gets a little better, and by nighttime, they're mostly gone. But first thing in the morning, there they are. And vice versa. Some people start out good, but hey, my pain comes on at 12 o'clock noon. I feel good in the morning, but, well, how is that possible if your body's the problem? So there are characteristics of symptoms that just don't make sense unless it's based on the brain's perception. So there are definitely assessments that can be done to determine, does this make sense for you? And, I call this the foundational four. What causes symptoms? Does it apply to me? Do the assessments. Is there a solution? Yes. I got people getting better all over the place. And am I capable of it? And that fourth one is tricky for a lot of people because they'll be saying, I've been anxious all my life. I've never felt safe. I don't know if I can do this. My symptoms are so severe. I'm so worried about it. I'm freaking out every day. I can't do this. But you need all four of those. You really do. And so a lot of what I do in my daily videos is keep on explaining stuff. Repetition is key. I probably have said the same thing thousands of times in these videos, but from different angles, and people will hear them differently. And that repetition matters. And it's just all about keep on telling people how to do this, how to change the way you're thinking, the way you're feeling emotionally about the symptoms, learning not to care as much. I was talking about safety, emotionally, mentally, physically. But how we respond to our symptoms is a huge factor in whether or not the brain says, Dan's okay, or no, he's not. Because if I have a tough day of symptoms, and I'm pretty calm about it, like, hey brain, we're good. We don't have to worry about this. We're actually fine because I know what causes it. I've done the assessments. There's a solution, so I know I'm going to be good. This is temporary. That's one way to respond to symptoms. But if you respond to a high degree of symptoms, running around the house screaming, the doctors must have missed something, it hurts so bad, I'm in trouble, this is going to be forever, you're confirming the brain's perception of danger. And when the brain gets confirmed, it's going to stick around longer. And the more we freak out, the more intense the symptoms get. So calm, reassurance, confidence, trust, your body heals. So back in the 70s and 80s, Dr. Sarno was working with people with pain. And he was trying to do the standard things, physical therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic, and recommending all of those things. And he started to ask questions like, well, what else is going on in your life? And he started to probe a little bit deeper. And that's when he started to formulate this theory that the brain was involved and the stress was involved. And if you go back and you look at his very original book, it was always stress and tension. It was only in his second book that he really started talking about these repressed emotions. But Dr. Sarno termed it TMS, tension myositis syndrome, because it was tension, as I just mentioned. Myo means muscle, and syndrome, right? Myositis syndrome. He later called it tension myoneural syndrome because he figured out that the nerves were also involved in this. And then it eventually got called the mind-body syndrome. So TMS is the term that's most widely known. For me, it didn't explain what's going on. 2 years ago, I coined the term perceived danger pain, perceived danger symptom. And essentially, I think all symptoms are a response when the brain perceives danger. And I think it's a bigger umbrella. I'm not saying Sarno's wrong, I'm just saying it goes well beyond his theory of emotions. But tension myositis syndrome, so many people are just going after the emotions, and people are doing journaling, they're doing therapy, and there's TMS therapists out there. And they're really all just focused on, let's dig up the past, let's see if we can deal with old traumas. And so far, I've been doing this for about 25 years, either being in pain or, being fascinated, learning, and now coaching. At least in my community, for the people who I've coached, I never had anybody come up and say, I found that trauma from 3rd grade, and when I found it, the symptoms went away. I really focus on, let's teach the brain we're safe. We experience the world emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. And whether you're a person of God or not, spiritually is also how you treat yourself. Are you kind to yourself? You care for yourself? Or are you really the person you treat the worst in the world is you, right? That I kind of include that in the spiritual side. But if we experience the world emotionally, physically, mentally, and how we treat ourselves, if the brain's perceiving danger there, it stands to reason that if we can feel safer in those ways that we experience life, the brain's going to feel better, safer, and turn down the alarm systems. I think creating safety now is the way to go. And I think that is also a way that we can overcome past traumas. Because even if you went through some really tough stuff years or decades ago, it's not happening now. And if we can convey that to the brain clearly, confidently, those traumas are not currently happening, the brain can feel safer and turn down or turn off the alarms. All sorts of pain conditions can be created by a brain perceiving danger, but there's all sorts of other ailments that can become persistent or chronic. Vertigo, dizziness, muscle spasms, gastrointestinal problems. That's absolutely caused by the brain perceiving danger. And let's look at it. The stress response, that's fight or flight. We've all heard those terms. When we're in the fight or flight response, that is a survival mode. The brain optimizes the whole body for survival. The eyes dilate to take in more information. Breathing quickens, heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up to take the oxygenated blood and get it into the arms and legs so you can fight or flee. What's not important in that moment is digestion and the immune system. So what happens is the brain says, let's not allocate resources there because you don't have to worry about digesting lunch, because if you don't get away from the bear, you will be lunch. Or you don't have to worry about fighting that common cold because we got bigger problems. So the brain allocates resources for the one thing, which is survival. I think a lot of chronic digestive issues are caused by chronic suppression of the digestive system. And that includes saliva production, digestive enzymes, how the gut works. And a lot of people are trying to fix the gut, fix the gut, fix the gut, and they're panicking trying to fix the gut, when in fact, you need to take a top-down approach. If the gut is dysregulated because you've been in fight or flight for too long, trying to fix the gut with probiotics, supplements, food elimination diets and all that stuff, all that does is perpetuate the fear that there's something wrong with the gut. And you can get into this never-ending cycle of fear and fixing. And, I've worked with people who are down to 3 foods. 3. Like white rice, chicken, like chicken breast, and maybe one other thing. And some of these people are getting back to eating a full diet of whatever they want. When you Stop stressing out about an issue that's caused by stress and fight or flight. The digestion often takes care of itself. But if you're always running around treating the symptom, you're not dealing with the root cause, which is the chronic fight or flight. A lot of people ask, what does it mean to heal or recover from these chronic ailments? And many people will get to the point where their symptoms or their pains go away and they're ecstatic and they love it. And if they're not prepared for this, sometimes if the symptoms do come back, they lose it. They freak out. Oh no, I have to start over. I never thought it would come back. This is horrible. My life is over again. And it's very easy to fall into despair if symptoms come back, especially if you've had a long journey with them and you went through this mind-body process and you taught your brain to turn them off. And so I really want to make it a point to say that we're not recovering from the brain ever turning on the alarm system again. The brain is always going to reserve the right to protect you from a perceived danger by turning on symptoms. And I believe recovery, and I don't like the word heal because that insinuates illness, injury, but I think recovery from this mind-body condition, this perceived danger, pain, or symptoms, is when you recover from fear. When you can have a new symptom show up and you can truly say, I know what that is. I'm not concerned. It's just the brain perceiving some type of danger. If it's obvious, great, make a note of it. But if it's not, you don't have to figure it out. Just jump right back into reassuring yourself that you're okay. Mentally, emotionally, physically, treat yourself well, respond to the symptoms well. A lot of people say distract yourself, and I don't think that's a solution. Distraction is always about running away from this thing you're scared of or want to get away from. So distraction is not a word I like to use in suggestions. I talk about engaging. Engage your brain in something else besides this all-consuming set of symptoms or pains. I think recovery, healing, if you want to use that word, is when you're recovered from the fear. We're really teaching the brain that the body's okay, and we're recovering from the fear of symptoms because, again, that would be like saying, I'm afraid of the smoke detector, and it's beeping, even though there's no fire and you're just cooking and you burnt some butter on the skillet, right? We don't need to be afraid of a false alarm. So it's really a matter of calming, teaching, reassuring. I think we can fix the subconscious with the conscious brain. Repetition, consistency, calm, soothing, reassurance, all of those things, and also how we behave. Because some people walk around saying, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, but they're terrified. Saying I'm safe doesn't mean anything. The brain goes, no, you're not. You're terrified. Can't fake it. But if you can show up authentically and convey credible evidence of safety enough so that it outweighs the brain's false perception of danger, that's when things shift. One of the things that I try to do is to convey simple to understand, simple to implement concepts that people can utilize from home by just watching some videos and start to see benefit. Doctors are not taught this stuff in medical school. Doctors, hospitals, pain clinics cannot make money by saying, you're not broken. Go home, you're going to be fine. Just reassure yourself, trust the body, teach the brain, you're fine. That's not a profitable business model. So people who say, how come my doctor didn't tell me? It's because they haven't been taught. It's not in medical schools. So it's up to people like me, and there are dozens and probably hundreds of other awesome people out there teaching this stuff and spreading the word. Most of the people doing what I do, chronic pain coaches, therapists, even doctors, there are some medical doctors who are following up after Sarno. They're all people with their own pain experience, and they're saying, more people need to hear about this. What's funny is when I finally got rid of my pain, if you had asked me back then, what did I do? I would have said, I'm not sure. And it's only in hindsight after doing these videos and coaching so many people that I'm able to look back and go, accidentally, through trial and error, I think I stumbled onto many of the concepts that I teach. You know, one of the main concepts is the mindset of indifference. Like, okay, I hurt today. So what? I think I hit a point in my 13-year journey where I finally said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. So even if I hurt, I'm just going to do life. I'm going to go do things. I'm going to stop saying no to responsibilities, to social engagements, to all this stuff. I'm going to stop talking about it. Literally had to tell everybody around me, stop asking me about it. I don't want to talk about it. And a lot of people still will say, Dan, what was the one thing that helped you get better? It wasn't one thing. It was a bunch of stuff. But if there was one thing, it was safety. Why? Because root cause, perceived danger is the problem. So no, you don't have to change who you are. If you're a perfectionist, doesn't matter. What I really want to encourage people is to know that there is life after chronic symptoms, chronic pain. You can regain life. I've been out bicycle riding. I rode dirt bikes. I rode a street bike. I'm a kayak fisherman, so I can go out and sit in the kayak for 8 hours straight, come out of the water, lift up the kayak and put it on the roof rack. And I see it all the time. We actually had one person go from long COVID and all of the various symptoms that she had. And after she went through this type of process, she ran the London Marathon. You can get a life back after chronic symptoms. We had a lady, 37 years of back pain. She's better. 43 years of migraines. She's better. But the vast, vast majority of people have chronic symptoms because they've got a brain that's terrified. And a terrified brain does not operate the human body effectively. As I was doing research for the book, I tried to figure out how big of a problem is chronic pain. And I just focused on US. And I saw statistics ranging from 20 to 30% of the US population has chronic pain, which means pain that's been lasting longer than 3 to 6 months, which is typically the healing time for any true injury. But what they also said is about 6 to 8% of the US population has chronic symptoms that are disabling, meaning they can't work, they're not mobile, they need help, basic, necessities of life. And so as you look at the size of those numbers, let's say 30%, you're talking 100 million people are walking around with some type of chronic something going on, just in the US alone. And when you multiply that out globally, it's an enormous problem. The people who should read my book are people who are curious about how the system works and would like to understand their own system, their own symptoms, their own pains a little bit better. Because when you gain that understanding of how it all works, it takes away a lot of the fear. When you do that, you can understand that, okay, wow, maybe I'm really not broken. That does a lot to bring down the fear and the perception of danger. The physical body is not the cause of the vast majority of chronic symptoms. And you teach the brain that you're safe, things settle down. If you're looking to take this further and understand more, there's a couple of resources for you. My main website is Pain Free You, and that's just a general website. There's some information there. You can find most of my daily talks, well, all of my daily talks on YouTube. So if you go to dansyoutube.com, that'll forward you right to the video page of my YouTube channel. But more importantly, I've got a fast start playlist of videos, which might be about 18 or 19 videos, which summarizes the core that we really need. Because look, I've been doing daily videos for over 5 years. You don't need to go watch them all. You wouldn't want to watch them all. It would take you forever. But if you go to dansfaststart.com, that will explain what causes symptoms. Here's where the assessments are. And then what do we do to convey safety? And so Dan's Fast Start is probably where I would recommend most people go. And if you're uncertain about this, even the very first video explains this concept that perceived danger is what creates symptoms. So if you're unsure, you're saying, nah, I don't know, this kind of sounds a little hokey, watch that first video. And if it interests you, watch more, do the assessments. Hope to see you on the websites, on my YouTube channel. If you want some direct help, Pain Free You group. And this is where I actually get together 4 times a week with anybody who needs extra help. They can ask questions. They get direct coaching from me. And so Pain Free You group is where you can see that. And But just know you can get better with the free stuff because a lot of people are.